Elizabeth Buse is the Visa Group President for Asia Pacific, Central Europe, the Middle East and Africa. Busy woman indeed. She joins us now from Singapore live. Elizabeth, many thanks indeed for joining us today. You are very busy right across Africa, the Middle East and of course Asia as well. I'm going to start by saying that Visa doesn't like being called a credit card company. But to me it is a credit card company. Dispel the myth.
John, thank you, first of all, for letting me join you this morning. And thank you for opening with that question, because Visa is a branded payments network. We don't set interest rates. We don't set fees to consumers or merchants. We don't determine any of the consumer or merchant terms. And what we issue, what we enable is credit accounts, debit accounts, prepaid accounts, all with the Visa brand and with the security and convenience and reliability of the Visa network. And those additional products are very important here in Asia because we're seeing most of our growth coming from the debit and prepaid cards, not from the credit cards that you mentioned.
I have a credit card. It is Visa. I've had it since I was 18. Again, credit is not good. My father always told me, cash, John, is king. He comes from a different era, but nevertheless, moving on from that, not really relevant, I want to ask you about getting into China. How difficult are the barriers to entry? We've seen, in fact, Citibank getting permission, but are you applying for a license? And if so, how tough is it?
Well, first, it's important to understand that the regulatory framework in China only permits one company to participate in domestic transactions. That's the company formerly known as China UnionPay, now UnionPay. We have a very robust business in China, but it's all international. So when Chinese travelers who have Visa cards travel outside of China, they use their Visa cards. And when we travel into China with our cards, we can use our cards to pay for things. But we have tremendous expectations for the domestic Chinese market, and we would like very much, as I'm sure all international payment schemes would, to be able to participate in that market, because an open market will fuel innovation, it will fuel investment, and we hope that the license that has been granted to Citi is just the beginning of a broader opening of that market.
So are you applying for a license?
Well, we already have the ability to participate in international transactions, but no one would be granted a license to participate in domestic transactions. So a bank participating in the retail banking sector in China is different from a payment scheme being allowed to process RMB-denominated transactions, and that's eventually what we would like to be allowed to do.
If I can change that a bit, PayPal has already applied for this one license, domestic online payments. Does Visa plan to apply for that one, or is that part of the same license application?
No, that would be part of the same limitation. So we partner with banks in China to issue Visa cards. Obviously, those can only be used for international transactions. We partner through some of our technologies with some of the e-commerce payment providers, but we, as it currently stands under the existing regulatory framework, are not going to be able to participate in domestic payments. But it's important to note that our China business is robust and is growing very quickly. It's just that it's limited to the international transactions, and we'd love to be able to invest in the growth and innovation of the domestic payments market as well.
You talk about it being robust. You've been with Visa since 1998. Can I ask, Elizabeth, how aggressive is Visa's strategy right now to really push into China? More than ever before?
You know, I would say absolutely. Visa's strategy in Asia is more aggressive than ever before. Just to put it into context, Asia represents 30% of Visa's payment volume globally, and in the 12 months ended December 31st of last year, we passed $1 trillion in payment volume. And that growth is really widespread. We saw more than 50% payment volume growth in China. We saw more than 25% growth here in Singapore. Even in established markets for electronic payments like Japan and Australia, we saw almost 20% growth. And we're seeing that growth accelerate in part because we have an aggressive growth strategy. I'll give you one example in Vietnam. It took us 20 years to have the first 1 million Visa cards issued in Vietnam, and it's only taken 2 for us to get our second million cards there.
I'm going to end off with a beginning question about it being a credit card company. Obviously, you're not a credit card company. But in this time of, let's say, frugality, everyone's trying to save money. You look at Europe, of course, heavily in debt. Is it irresponsible for credit card companies, for example, to send out these forms asking for more credit cards, higher interest, more loans, or should that be stopped? And everyone should be stopped to save.
You know, I think that from a Visa perspective, the fact that you can have a Visa credit product, which allows you essentially to buy things ahead of paying for them. There's also Visa debit, which allows you to pay as you go from your current account, or even prepaid, which is that you fund the account before you actually make the purchase. And making sure that our banks and our consumers have access to all of those different kinds of accounts allows them to make individual determinations about how they manage their finances. And for Visa, it really helps accelerate our growth because debit and prepaid products, particularly in emerging markets, are our fastest growing segments.
Elizabeth Booth, many thanks for your time this morning.